So Micah Washington, a 24-year-old black man from Alabama, was recently tased by a police officer after he was put into handcuffs. The officer has since been put on administrative leave, but the video clearly shows her walking him to the car. He's already in handcuffs. He lays down on the hood of the car, and she says to him to stop moving, and he says, "I ain't doing shit. I've got a gun right there." She takes the gun, she puts it away from him. Again, he's handcuffed. He's not reaching for it. He's not resisting. And she begins to hit him with a stun gun in the back. And when he begins to scream in pain, she tells him to shut the fuck up. Now, before anybody comes at me with all the whataboutisms, and before anybody comes at me and says, well, this is why it might have been okay, I want you to just ask yourself one simple question. What if that was your son? What if that was your child? What if that was your brother? What if that was your dad? What if that was your husband? What if that was your best friend on earth? When people came at you with all their whataboutisms, they wouldn't mean shit to you because you would say, hold on a second, that's really fucked up. But I'm already seeing the comments rolling. I knew I would. When I heard the story, I knew what the other side would start saying. And sure enough, there's been people saying, well, what happened before the video started rolling? That's irrelevant. Because at the point she began to tase him, he was not resisting. Nothing was going on. He was complying with everything she was saying to do. People say, well, he was on probation. What's that got to do with anything? That's irrelevant. Well, the gun wasn't registered. Again, that's irrelevant. What does that have to do with this officer tasing a man after he's complied, after he's put in handcuffs? What is the reason? People get so mad when I make it about race. They'll say, oh, when I say that's racism, I have people come at me, you shouldn't make it about race. But what am I supposed to do when I see white people make every excuse on earth when it's their side, but when it's the other side, they should back the blue, they should comply? I grew up on the Tennessee-Kentucky border. This is where I was born and raised, right here. And in my lifetime, growing up in the 80s, the 90s, and even into the 2000s, rednecks and cops did not get along. All these backwinding hollers we have that goes back in these mountains, there's communities back there where people do not want the police to ever show up or come around. And they usually don't unless somebody has been unalived. And rednecks in my part of the world always referred to the cops as the pigs. I've been a musician for 25 years, and I have played these backwoods dive bars on these backwinding roads, back in these hollers. I've played in places where people rode in on four-wheelers, okay? And they would say to me, I've had the owner of the establishment come up to me, I've had bouncers come up to me, I've had people in the crowd come up to me and say, hey, tell the crowd the pigs got a roadblock down the road. They need to go the other way when they come out of the parking lot. Oh no, the pigs are coming. Everybody, act right. Here comes the pigs. They shouldn't be fucking with us. But then the minute that black people stepped forward and said, hey, our life matters, suddenly they became, well, they should have just complied. They should have had respect for the law enforcement. And they even went out of their way to create a flag. Back the blue, which doesn't surprise me. They create a flag for every weird, stupid idea that they can cook up. Now, that being said, I respect law enforcement. I always have. I've always complied. I've always been honest. I've always done what I was told. And I've never been arrested, never been to jail in my life. But I have sat and told stories to people of color about close calls that I had, or about roadblocks that I went through, or about times that I was searched. And they have sat there with their jaw on the floor saying to me, we would have never got away with that. If we'd have been in your shoes, we would have been terrified. Now, I'm a 43-year-old white dude from East Tennessee, and I can recognize that I have that advantage. And recognizing that I have that advantage is not me trying to make it about race. It's not about me trying to have a gotcha moment. It's about me realizing the truth and realizing what other people go through. And if you are a white person who grew up in this part of the world, carry on conversations with people of color and exchange stories with them. Exchange stories. Let them tell you about their run-ins with the police, and then you tell them about the time that you was shit-faced drunk, but they said, we'll just follow you home, buddy. We know you mamaw. people needs to wake up and realize that there is a reason why that black people have a massive distrust for law enforcement. And there's a reason why that they've been saying this for years. And instead of always trying to find an excuse to demonize them and make them the villain and make them the criminal in the story, how about we just start listening? Because that's what it's going to take. It's not going to go away if we quit talking about it. Please stop throwing that Morgan Freeman quote at me. Please stop throwing that at me, because I guarantee you if Morgan Freeman was asked about that today, he probably would have a different spin on it. And if not, then Morgan Freeman's fucking wrong, okay? So stop throwing that quote at me. Stop throwing the one about Malcolm X and the white liberal. I'm tired of hearing those because they are irrelevant to what we're talking about right now. And what happened to Micah Washington in Alabama is bullshit. Straight up bullshit. And we should be able to call it out as such, and we should work hard to do something about it to ensure that this type of bullshit don't keep happening.